6.2, residuals and best fit lines. We are skipping this residuals idea. The gist of it is basically it's finding the distance. So it's basically looking at like what we did in the last section. We came up with that line of fit. What a residual is it basically looks for the distance between the line and any of the points. So we'd be looking for the distance between, say, this point and this line. So we'd look at that distance right there. So we're looking at that distance and this distance and this distance, that distance, that distance. This has a distance of 0, that distance, that distance. So we're looking at all those distances and then we plot them, and that helps us determine whether a line is a good fit. Okay. I feel like our time is better spent just looking at how our calculator does it and then moving on to other things. So we're going to skip that, just graphing residuals, because it's a lot of graphing and very time consuming. So we're just going to skip that part. Okay, but we are going to do the best fit line. So we've already done lines of best fit, but we're going today use our linear regression function of a graphing calculator. All the directions I'm going to show you are using a TI-83, 84, 84 plus, TI-84 plus CE. They're all just different versions of that 84 operating system. If you have another operating system, a different type of calculator, there are ways of doing it, but I don't know them. So we'll have to Google that and find that out together. Either that or you borrow one of mine while we do this section. Okay. So again, a line of best fit is a line that comes closest. So line that comes closest to all the points in a data set. Okay. It is sometimes also referred to as the least squares line. So basically what that means is they're looking at that distance and we square it to make it positive. Squaring a number is going to make it positive. It's also going to make it bigger or smaller, but to make it positive so that we have all positive numbers and we look for what's the smallest because we want that smallest distance. So I just want you to be familiar with another word that we call it, a least squares line. And in our calculator, we do it by forming what's called a linear regression. Okay. Basically, it's the calculator's way of finding that line. Okay. So to start, we need a data set. So suppose a study is conducted of adolescents or teens who are asked to log the amount of time, hours per day, spent with different screen-based media, TV, video, game consoles, PCs, internet, phone, so on. And the number of times they engage in fitness activity, number of sessions per week. So the adolescents track their screen time and fitness for several months. The table shows the average value of screen time and fitness recorded for several adolescents. Oh man, I don't have the table in here. Sorry guys, I missed it. It's in your textbook. So you'll need to open your book to page 178. Okay, I can't believe I didn't get that data in here. So open your textbook to page 178. That's where we'll get that data. So I am going to plug that set of data. I got the other one. Sorry, I was checking to make sure I had the other one. Okay, so we're going to plug this in our calculator. Okay, so this is where it gets hard for me to video this. So first I have a picture of what a standard TI calculator looks like and their buttons. Yours might be slightly different color, but normally all the buttons are in the same spot. I'm going to run through the steps. I would like you to take notes on the steps so that way you can reference them as we go. But I do have some notes here, like I have the steps kind of laid out along with what the screens look like. And over here, I'm going to mark up what buttons I'm pushing because I do have a calculator that I'm going to use, but you can't see me push the buttons. Okay, right now I'm in some weird screen. Okay, I'm in some weird screen. So to get out of this weird screen, okay, a go-to to get out of any screen is to hit the second button and then quit. So I'm hitting second, quit. And that takes me back to just the standard here. I'm just at the standard home screen. Okay, so second, quit. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open my book to page 178. So open book page 178, I'm going to look at that table. And it's the screen time is in hours per day, and the fitness is in sessions per week. It's the X and Y table. I'm so sorry I didn't get this in there. So now I need to put that data into my calculator. So to do that, I'm going to push here that stat button. I'm right here. Stat button. So the stat button is located right here. There's the stat button. You can see it. I'll do it. There's the stat button right there, right below the delete button. So I'm hitting stat. And you get to a screen that looks like this guy right here. So the first thing I want to do is I need to edit. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter on edit. So I go to edit and hit enter button, which you don't know the enter button, it's down here. There's the enter button right there. So we go ahead and hit the enter button. Okay, and then I get here, this L1, L2, L3. These are the lists. So this is where I'm going to put my data. If you notice I have something there in list 2, do not hit delete. But if I hit clear or clear and arrow down, hey, sorry I got out of there. Clear and arrow down, it gets rid of whatever's in there. So I'm going to list 1, and I'm going to go ahead and type in my X values into list 1. So again, looking on page 178.5, enter 1.4, enter 3.6, enter 4.0, enters 5, 5.3, enter 5.8, enter, and 7.0. Of course, it's going to put in a 7. So there are in list 1, those are my independent variables, or my X. Now I arrow over, and now I'm going to put in list 2. So 6.5. So I look at my ordered pair. My first one was 0.5, 6.5. So those line up. And then 1.4 to 5.2. Then 4.9, 4.8, 3.9, 2.3, 1.6. Okay, so I have my data set in there. Okay, great, I have it in there. I can actually plot it, but I have to tell my calculator to plot it. So to do that, step 2, to plot it, I need here the stat plot button. So the stat plot, I need the second button first. So if you notice on your calculator, there's all these little blue words or just a different colored letter above. To get to those, you have to hit the second button first, which is right there. So if you notice up here, these are our graphing buttons up here. Right below the screen, those are our graphing buttons. And if you notice here, this Y equals button, right above it is stat plot. Right there's our stat plot. So to get to that, I need to hit the second button and then stat plot. So for this step 2 here, we're going to need the second button and then stat plot. So I'm hitting second, stat plot. Oh, okay. And you'll get something that looks like this. Okay. So if you notice here, we have 3 different plots across the top. Plot 1, plot 2, plot 3. And sorry, I can't circle on this screen. Like I can't draw on my calculator. I plot 1 there. I want to turn on. So I'm going to hit enter over to the on to turn it on. Okay. The next one, color. If you have a CE version, which this one is, you can pick a color. You can't. The next thing, type, is the different types of plots you can get. We just want a scatter plot, which is the first option. The next one, mark. Do I want to mark my points with a box, a plus sign, a closed box, or a dot? I always go with just the default, the first one. The dot, the last one, is really hard to see. And the next one is, where are my X values? My X values are in list 1. My Y values are in list 2. If they are in different spots, you can get list 1 and list 2. Over here on our, I'm going to mark up here on our calculator. If you notice here, above the 1, 2, and 3 button, there is an L1, L2. See that L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, L6? You can get to other lists. You just have to get to that blue again, you have to hit that second button first and then hit one of those. If, say, for example, you accidentally put your X list in list one. What I mean by that is if you notice up here at the top, we have list one, list two, list three, list four. If you accidentally deleted list three and you put it in list four instead, you could switch it up. Okay, so again, we're back to our stat plot. So yes, my X's are in list one, my Y's are in list two. Yep, so I can go ahead and I'm going to hit graph. Okay, now if your graph doesn't look like mine, you may need to adjust your window. What I mean by that is your calculator will only show you what you tell it to show you. Hey, so it's kind of like me looking out my classroom window and not seeing any cars just because my window doesn't show me there's any down there because my window doesn't show down on the street, but there's still cars there. So you may need to adjust your window. So how you do that is the window button, which there's a window button right here. Oh, sorry. Right, there's the window button. So if you hit it, okay, you can see your X minimum. That's the farthest on the X axis you're going to see. Your X max, the farthest on the X max. The X SCL, that's X scale. What am I counting by for? So for example, I'm going to go ahead and change this. I want to see from negative 20 to 20. Oh, and let's count by twos. So my X scale is by 2. And then let's say my Y minimum, I want to go negative 50 to 50. But let's count by 5s on that. So now if you look at my graph, I'm going from my X's go from negative 20 to 20. My Y's go up from 50 to negative 50. And I'm counting by 5s and 10s and 2s. Okay. There are some preset windows, and that's under this zoom option. Okay. Those are the ones that are most useful. So if you hit that zoom button, the ones most useful are Zoom 6 and Zoom 5 and Zoom 6. That's the standard in the square screen. So if I go back to Zoom 6, it's negative 10 to 10. Okay. When doing stat, there is actually a zoom. Let's go ahead and let's write that in our notes. Zoom stat, which I believe is option 9, is super useful because then basically what that does. So now if you can either arrow down to 9 or you can just type in 9. Basically what it does is it just takes its window around its points. So there's my points. There they are. Okay. All right, so now we need a line for it. We need a line that goes through it. So these next steps here in my notes are walking through the line. Again, I go to the stat button again. So again, we're still using that stat button. But now instead of editing, we want to calculate with those stats. So I arrow over to calculate. And then I want a linear regression, which is option 4, linear regression. So I can either type in the number 4 or arrow down to 4. Okay. Now I should get something like this. If you don't, you may be running an old operating system. If it doesn't look like this, see me. If you don't get this screen where it asks for your X list and your Y list, sometimes it doesn't. Come see me and I'll help you get the newest operating system. We just need to update your OS. Okay, so now we have our X. So now it's asking us, where's my X values? List 1, that's where they are. My Y values are in list 2. Frequency list is if I had a lot of data points, I would have a frequency list. Meaning if, let's say, the first data point happens 10 times, okay, we would have a frequency list, which we don't. The next one, though, store regression equation. Oh, sorry. I don't know where it went. This doesn't always work. There we go. So under this store regression equation, I can tell my calculator to automatically take the equation we get and put it in my y equals. So that's this step here. Okay, to store my regression equation. So store regression equation. Then I'm going to hit the vars button. Do you know where vars is at? Vars is right there. So I'm hitting vars. And then enter y vars. And then enter for y1. So this is telling, oh, you might have to hit function y equals, depending on which type of calculator you have. This is telling my calculator to now store it into my y1 to graph it. Okay. And so then now I go ahead and hit enter. All right, this may look really crazy. Okay, all this is telling me is, here, I'm gonna take a picture of this guy real quick and we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna put it in, done. Okay, oh, that works. Okay, so I just wanna be able to write on it and then we'll get rid of it here in a minute. There we go. Okay, I know you don't have this in your notes, so I want to be able to draw on it. Basically, what this is telling me is it's giving me the equation y equals ax plus b, right? It looks like mx plus b. But they're telling me here my a is negative. So there's your slope. Okay. And then my b here, okay, that's again your same b, your y-intercept. So I would need to now write down my model, okay, meaning I need to write down my equation. So my equation would be y equals, my m is negative 0.68. Normally we say 2 to 3 decimal places, x, plus my b is 6.859, but that's a 6 behind there, so it'd be 60. So this would be now 6 and 0. So there's my equation that fits this line. And then my R value, if you notice here, they give you an R value. What did our R value mean before? That is still the same old R value. That is still that correlation coefficient. It's telling me how well my data fits this point, and it's negative 0.93. So it's going to be a negative slope, a negative correlation, which I know it is. Negative correlation, right? Negative correlation. And it has, but it's pretty good. It's 0.93. That's pretty close to negative 1. Again, you want that correlation coefficient close to negative 1 or 1. The closer it is to negative 1 or 1, the better the fit. Hey, if your calculator does not give you that correlation coefficient, it's because your diagnostics are turned off. That's a default. I don't know why it defaults to that, so you'll have to turn it on. So to turn it on, you're going to need to hit the second button and then catalog, which is the 0 button. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to hit second catalog, and I get this. Now, your calculator will automatically be in what's called alpha mode. So I could just scroll down, or you can hit the green alpha D button, which is right there, and it'll automatically take you down to the Ds. Okay, so I hit that alpha D button. It takes me all the way down to the Ds. Now, at this point, you'll have to scroll down till you get to the thing that says diagnostic on, which this one doesn't have that because it's always on. But you'll get a screen that shows diagnostic on. It looks like this screen right here. You want to hit enter on diagnostic on, and then you have to hit enter again to actually run it. Okay. All right. So now if I go to my y equals, if you notice there is that equation. No rounding, no nothing. It's there. It's in my y equals. So now when I go to graph it, not only do I have my points, I also have my line. So now I can trace on that line. Let's say I want to figure out if somebody spends 2 hours of screen time, what is their athletic? So if I go to trace, if you notice here, my traits right now are on plots because it says plots. But if I arrow down, maybe, sorry, this one works a little different. Oh no, it's letting me trace on the line. You'll have to arrow down to be able to trace. And then I can hit the left and right button and it'll kind of trace me along there, or I can just type in. So when X is 2, Y is 5.49. So somebody's going to have 5.49 fitness sessions per week, about 5.5 fitness sessions per week if they spend 2 hours of screen time per day. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's do this one more time. The data shows the average height and weight for male babies for the first few months after birth. So let's go ahead again, stat, edit. So I need to put this data in. So I'm going to arrow up, I'm going to hit clear, arrow down. Next list, arrow over, clear, arrow down. Oh, I don't know why it always says that. Okay, so now we put those data points in. Okay, so we have 7.4, 9.8, 12.3, oh, delete 12.3, enter 0.1, enter 15.4, enter 16.6, enter, enter. Now arrow over to put the next list in. 19.6, 0.6, 23, 24.2, oh, 5.2, 26, 26.6. Now, one good thing is I already have my plots on. If I go to my second Y equals, my plots are already on. Okay, so if I go to graph, but I don't see my points, again, because of my window. You may need to adjust your window. So I'm going to hit zoom, option 9 for stat. Oh, there's my points. Now, and if you notice, my X is going from about 0 to 18. My Y is going, I don't know, from 19 to 27-ish, somewhere around there. But then I still have this in my Y equals for my last one. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to clear that out. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's get the equation. Because it says find an equation of line of best fit. Okay, so I need to arrow over to calculate, option 4. Okay, we have, oh wait, I put that in the wrong spot. I have to go back to home. Okay, so one thing is, since I just did my linear regression, I can hit second and then the enter button, and it'll bring up a linear regression again. It'll bring up the last thing I just did. And I can run it again, but with my new data points, because my list 1 and my list 2 are now different. So I can go and I can run it again, and there, it gave me a new equation. So first we write that equation down. Y equals, my M is 0.681x, plus my B is 14.692. And I'm going to write down my R, approximately 0.9988. Wow, that's really good fit. Look how close that is to 1. We have a positive slope. Oh. And now if I go to my Y equals, there's my equation. And if I go to graph, I can see them both. Yeah, look at how close those points are to that line. Almost all of them are on it except for like that one. So, and then it says, then use the equation of the line to estimate the length of a baby born when he weighs 20 pounds. Okay, so a weight of 20 pounds. So first I have to ask myself, what is that? Is that X or is that Y? Weight is X. So this is an X value of 20 pounds. So now I can use this equation that I have, and I can put 0.681 times 20 plus 14.692, and I get approximately 28.312. Okay, another thing I can do is I can go back to my graph, and I can trace and type that in, 20. And then look at what my Y is. It's 28.303. You might ask why those are different answers. If you notice, those are different answers. My calculator, when I traced, I got that one. This was my calculator from tracing. And this is from using the equation. Why are they different? The equation is rounded, and it does make that big of a difference. So this is actually the more accurate answer. This is the more accurate answer. Because if I go to my calculator, my Y equals, it's not rounded. Look at all those decimal places. It goes to like 10 or 12 decimal places. So it's not rounded. Okay. All right, and I know we haven't done it yet before, but I can graph other equations the same way by just typing in. I can type in now 4x plus 16, and I can graph that line as well. Oh, I can't see it because of my window. But I can graph that line as well. I can graph whatever line I want to here. And we will spend more time learning how our calculator does that. Clear, does it clear? No, deletes out. But we are going to be doing more and more calculator graphing. Okay. All right.